Yeah, thanks everyone for joining despite it being like a festival weekend. I know everyone's really busy with family, spending some good time at home, eating some delicious food. So we're going to be, I'm sure you already all know what we're going to be, the topic we're touching upon today, right? It's really talking a lot about periods and workouts and hormones. But before we start, I just want to quickly talk about Dr. Mahesh Jayaraman. I mean, I could give a very long intro, but I won't do that. But he's, a women's health expert, all right, certified master of functional blood chemistry analysis from the prestigious Optimal TX Academy of USA. He's done multiple things, but apart from all that, he's got like 2 decades of experience in women's health. The last 6 years, however, he has co-founded this place called Sipalika, all right, and they specialize in women's hormone health. That's their key focus, right? And now, of course, they're getting very, very in depth into fertility and all of that. So, Dr. Mahesh Jayaraman, thank you so much for taking the time and being here with us. I'll stop talking because everyone's probably saying in their head, like, okay, you can shut up now. We'll go to Dr. Mahesh. So, yes, over to you. So, you can start off with anything you want to say.
All right. Thank you so much, Vitambri. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to such a dedicated group of people. And we know that they're pre-selecting because they're part of your belly burn group. And, everybody else as well, anybody who's interested in period health and, what should we be doing, what should we not be doing during these periods, etc. Welcome to everybody. Yes, we do believe, and Ayurveda has been saying this for centuries, that there are 2 points of time in the period cycle in a lady's entire 28-30 day cycle when her body is naturally inflamed. It's almost like a healthy inflammation, right? So it's almost like your exercise. So the first one happens in the middle of your period, around day 14, 16, in a normal sort of 28-30 day cycle. And that is when you're ovulating. So the body naturally has to be in a slightly inflamed state for the egg to be released from your ovary. So that's point number one. Point number two, when the body is inflamed, is when you're actually having a period. A period is nothing but the inner wall of the uterus being shed by the body because you chose not to have a baby during that particular cycle. So that's the second time when the body is naturally inflamed. So it would make absolute common sense to say that during these two periods, when the body is already inflamed, why would you want to inflame it more with really strenuous activities, whether it's aerobic exercise or it's weight resistance or whatever it is that you're doing? These are 2 points of time when the body is inflamed, and you would do well to not really push yourself during those times. And that's the basic wisdom of Ayurveda. And beautifully enough, like everything has to go from India to the West and then come back. So, we like it when the white man also says, hey, Indians were right. So it's gone back to the West. And in the West, they have found with ways in which they can measure the inflammatory stress in a lady's body during these two periods of time. It's been done as far back as 1940. Right. So they've started measuring the amount of positive ions being emitted from the index finger of a lady throughout this whole period. And they did this for many, many periods across months and years. And they found that predictably the inflammatory burden in a lady's body increased around that day 14 to 16 and during the first 3 to 4 days of her bleed. So we know that this wisdom that Ayurveda has been telling us for centuries is also ratified by modern science now. So the smart thing to do would be to not increase your further inflammatory burden during these 2 points of time.
Sorry, I was on mute. I think that was like one of the first thing that you told me also, during our first connect, which was I think back in September, right? I know I have been obviously training. My body doesn't. I was telling you this earlier as well during our tech check that I think all of us react very differently to periods, right? I don't literally feel a thing. In the sense, I don't cramp as badly, and in the same family, my sister, has terrible cramps and she cannot do without I think if I'm not mistaken it's a meftal spaz or something that she was always having initial days. I never had to use any of those because I never felt pain. And for me, it was business as usual, life as usual. So I could go lift heavy, I could run, I could do anything, and I could be okay. And but when you obviously educated me, I kind of looked at things very differently. What do you think of these, the pills that all of us kind of depend on because it's unbearable pain? Is it normal to go through that kind of pain? Something that we can ignore, something that we need to be mindful about?
Absolutely. And I think, this is the beauty of periods that women have the privilege of having and men don't. So we literally in naturopathic sciences, in alternative medicine, we call this the fifth vital sign. And
Hmm.
if you're having pain before your periods, it's a sign that something is wrong.
Hmm.
So a woman receives a report card on her health every month, whereas a man doesn't. And
Hmm.
that is the beauty of how we can catch disease very early in women, any imbalance very early, before it gets into a full blown disease. So,
Got it.
according to Ayurveda and naturopathy, your periods should literally sneak up on you. You shouldn't even know that they're coming and hey, they're there. So that's
Hmm.
the healthiest period that you can have. That said, we can't be really foolish and ignore the fact that we have poisoned our seas, poisoned our rivers. We have a lot of stress. We do 100 things that our ancestors never did. So we can't expect to have completely painless periods all the time unless we live that life. But if you're getting periods just before, I mean, if you're getting pain just before your periods, it is a sign that something is wrong. So let's understand where this pain is coming from and whether Meftalspaz, which is, not to name a brand, but every woman only knows the brand. She doesn't know the mefenamic acid which is in it.
Yeah.
So, the reason that it's needed. So the inner wall of the uterus, which was being built throughout your period, in case you chose to have a baby, the baby needed a place to grow. So the inner wall of the uterus, which is called the endometrium, got thickened through that entire process of 28 days. You've chosen not to have a baby, so that wall now needs to be broken down and removed in the form of blood. That's what is happening. So, in that process, it's natural for the uterus to kind of move itself to try and break down that wall. So,
Got
that
it.
is the pain that you're feeling. However, if you feel excessive amounts of pain, one of two things are possible. And we often find that both are true in women who are having pain. So, number one, the inner wall probably got a lot thicker than it needed to be. This happens when it is an estrogen excess. So in the body, woman's body, there are two hormones that work. So I'll do a quick 30-second detour
Yeah.
into what these hormones are, and that will tell us
Yes.
why it's relevant to the pain. Day 1 to day 14, estrogen rules the roost. It builds the inner wall of the uterus, makes it thick. Around day 14, once the egg is released, then estrogen's activity is stopped by the second hormone called progesterone. The job of progesterone is to protect that inner wall of the uterus for the next 14 days, should you choose to fall pregnant. So at the end of 28 days, if you have chosen not to fall pregnant, then this whole period comes back, which is the breaking down of the inner wall. Now, I said that if you have too much estrogen during this 28-day period leading to that, the actual period flow, 28-day time period, that means that estrogen did its job for more than 14 days. Estrogen is
Hmm.
the builder. So it got more than its fair share of time. So you are in a relative estrogen excess or estrogen dominance. This made the wall thicker, and therefore the job of breaking down creates more pain. As you can
Hmm.
imagine, it will take more effort to break down any thicker wall than a thinner wall.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the thicker wall is going to twist your uterus more to try and release that blood, and
Hmm.
therefore you're feeling the pain. That's number one. Number two, hormones have this unique nature in our body. We are meant to use it and lose it. So
Hmm.
when estrogen gets its fair share of time in day 1 to day 14, after that, the body tries to metabolize and remove estrogen from your body during the
Hmm.
remaining phase. And especially closer to the period onset, the body is trying to remove estrogen via your stools and via your urination. In that process, if you're eating, let's say, for example, junk food at that time, right, just before your periods, your friend came over, said, let's do ice cream. You went out, you had junk food, you had ice cream. Now the liver, which has the job of breaking down this estrogen, has this
Hmm.
additional burden of also breaking down the ice cream on the same day. So now you've got that, it's not able to break it down, which
Yeah.
means that now you've got a backup in that lower abdominal area of stuff that's not being able to be removed. So you have on the one hand an estrogen excess, which happens to a lot of women, estrogen getting more than 14 days in a period. And you have, once it has been used, the inability to remove it because our digestion and lifestyle don't support the removal of the hormone. So with both
Wow.
of these, you get these crazy pains. But here's the trick, right? So there has been a study which showed that rather than using meftalspaz, if you just use jeera, so mefenamic acid and fennel is
Mm.
even better, so soft. So
Mm.
simple soft, when it is boiled in a simple decoction and you use it in the PMS period, you can several times do without the meftalspaz. It
Mm.
doesn't
Mm.
mean that you should ignore the pain because, like I said, that is a sign that there is estrogen dominance and that you are having too much estrogen in your body. So you must get that addressed and, do things to lower estrogen. But you can
Right.
use natural home remedies in place of meftalspaz. You get the same results. The study showed gram for gram, mefenamic acid and fennel had the same positive results in women in PMS pain.
Got it. So, just day before yesterday, I responded to someone who said that I took a tablet and to kill that intense pain, right? And I'm like, why can't you try other ways and avoid taking those tablets? I mean, clearly not coming from a space of understanding this in detail, but I've never had to. So that I'm trying to basically understand. So I just wanted to ask you, for everyone else, that how can we avoid tablets? Like, one is, of course, like you said, don't ignore the intense pain and address it, right? But we can battle that pain. In the sense, is there a way to kind of reduce that pain over a period of time?
Absolutely. So,
Okay.
estrogen doesn't increase in your body just like that. The wall
Hmm.
doesn't get built thicker than it needs to just
Hmm.
because nature, wants to give you pain. Nature is always looking out for you. So, if you do things to reduce the amount of estrogen burden in your body, number one. Number
Hmm.
two, if you avoid doing things which will worsen the digestive system just before your periods, both of these can hugely support. I mean, we've dealt with nearly 1,000 women at the Sepalika Women's Health Clinic now.
Yes.
Several of them come with PMS pain. And
Hmm.
in the 3 months that they work with us, just simple things which we change in their diet, adding a little bit of fiber before especially in the week before the onset of the period,
Hmm.
making sure that we do something very simple like seed cycling. This is something that every woman should do, right? So I'm sure a lot of your cohort is a group of people is already well educated in this, but we do recommend in the two big cycles of the period. So let's say day
Hmm.
1 to day 14, the acronym to remember is FLAP, FLAP. So
Okay.
flax seeds and pumpkin seeds, right? So
Oh,
the
okay.
so remember the first 14 days are flapping, right? So that's your flaxseed and pumpkin seed. Flaxseed and pumpkin seed help to have healthy estrogen rise and then stop estrogen from doing its work beyond day 14, 15 after ovulation. These seeds, remember, seeds are nature's potent pills. They have
Hmm.
so much nutrition in them, so much fiber in them that they will support certain activities if you use them right. In the second half of the period, remember Susie. So the woman who was flapping is Susie. So Susie is sunflower and sesame. So you do sunflower seeds and sesame seeds from day 15 to the onset of the period. And you've got this beautiful seed cycling. And the way to do it is 1 tablespoon of each of these seeds per day. You can easily grind it up and put it on your porridge, put it on your upma, put it on whatever it is. You won't get any bad flavors or anything, and you'll get a nice nutty taste to these things. So, if you just get into that cycling, it can really help support healthy estrogen and healthy progesterone so that neither is too high. And you will find within a month, usually of seed cycling, most of our women report by the second month. We have so many testimonials of women who say, I suddenly, I forgot it was my period date. I had to, ask a friend for some, pads and so on in the office. So that's how beautifully your body responds. The body is very forgiving, so trust nature.
Oh yes, the body is very forgiving. Agree with you on that. So flap is flaxseed and pumpkin seeds. in the first cycle, which is first day 1 to 14. And then Susie is, you said sunflower and what else?
Sesame,
Sesame.
SUSE.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah. And that is from 15th day to your onset of period. That's
correct.
such great advice. Thank you so much. The next thing I want to ask, I'm sorry I have all these questions, but these are all questions that I've taken from the social media where people have asked me, right? Taking pills to postpone periods. Is that the right thing to do? I'm sure it's not. Uh, without knowing anything, I've never been comfortable doing it. And I think I've done it once in my lifetime when I had to go to Tirupati and my mom insisted I do it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, let me take this in two parts. I understand again, this is a practical world that we live in, right? And obviously, there are times when you have no option and you do take the pill. My only request is don't do it, for example, more than once in a year or 2 years. Okay. Every time you take a pill to kind of postpone your period, you're literally upsetting your entire hormone system. So ask yourself, what does the pill contain? Sadly, pharma has made sure that they all have these nice, gentle names, Daisy and Diane, and all these lovely sounding names, as if it's some harmless schoolgirl kind of nice thing to do. It unfortunately is not. It is full of synthetic hormones. It has ethinyl estradiol. It has medroxyacetane progesterone. These are hormones that will upset your next period and the
Hmm.
period after that, depending on your baseline. If you're at top health, it's going to affect at least two periods after that. If you're anywhere compromised, which a lot of ladies are, then it's going to affect you literally for 4, 5, 6 periods after that. So, we teach them a old Ayurvedic trick inside. Now, this comes from Tantra. I'm afraid I don't have any research study to prove this. Try it. If it works, then it's fine. Otherwise, it's no harm done. Tie a black thread to the base of your big toe. Okay. So you do it on the right toe and you do it on the left toe. So this is part of color therapy. And the main acupressure meridians that are involved in creating a period or the shedding of the inner uterus happen to go from the two sides of the toe. So there's the stomach meridian and the spleen meridian, and you've got both of them running through that area. And tying a black thread can work. Now, it kind of, I, honestly, as a man of science, I kind of cringe a little to say this, but yes, it does have a 50-60% effect rate, and it doesn't really harm in any way, right? That's number one. Number two, why would you even want to postpone a period to go to a temple, right?
Hmm.
We've got these rituals built in, and these rituals are important for us to understand what is the science behind it. So, just at the start of this chat, I began by saying that women are naturally inflamed during their periods, right? So, the degree of inflammation is high. What is inflammation? Inflammation produces this thing that we've all heard called free radicals. A free radical is a atom that has lost an electron in its outer orbit. Now, this is too much geek, but in general, having a electron deficient state keeps you inflamed, right? So that's basically what's happening to women. So during those periods, you become an electron vampire. Anybody who's ready to give you electrons, you will suck it out of them, because that's how physics works. From somebody who has a lot of electrons, it will travel to somebody who doesn't have. That's how balance works, right? So that's the nature of the lady during that period. So you will find all kinds of things in Hindu, which is all attributed to Manuvadi, and saying this is men trying to oppress women. Of course, men are fully guilty of all of that. However, there is a science to this as well. So if you go to a temple or to a place where the consecration of the idol is such that it is meant to increase or sort of move up your energies from the lower chakras to the higher chakras. I'm sure as part of the fitness that you do, there are also things where we do chakra meditation, etc. Remember, during a period, this is going downward. The energy is
Hmm.
traveling downward. It is called an apanavayu in Ayurveda. And if you go to a place that increases your energy and moves it upwards, suddenly
Yeah.
the period will stop. I'll give you
Ah.
another very simple example. You try taking a long shower on the day when you're having a period. If the
Hmm.
shower lasts for more than 10, 12 minutes, you will find that even if you were having a heavy bleed before that, it will stop. Now,
Oh.
this is happening because flowing water is full of electrons. If you have so many electrons pass over your body, your
Mm.
entire inflammatory state goes into an anti-inflammatory state and you will stop having the bleed.
Ah.
Now, even things like, like they say a menstruating lady shouldn't enter the kitchen. Why
Mm.
should she not enter the kitchen? So the whole idea again is fresh food is full of prana, or it is full of free electrons that they
Mm.
give to you. So when you eat food, you get energy not just from the nutrients in the food, but also from the electrons in the food. And if you touch that food while it is being cooked, like the raw vegetable, you touch it to cut it, that electrons already travel to you and the food will not taste the same. Look it
Mm.
up. Try it with your experience. You may or may not realize it based on the subtlety of it, but these have been proven with electron studies. They've seen how this happens. So, these are the reasons why, certain things are not allowed. Again, whenever somebody says this is nonsense, this is some ancient mumbo jumbo, I always request people, please go into the specificity of it and see why somebody would give this instruction, right? So, for example, the Vedas, in the Upavedas, it says very clearly, and I must give a shout out to to my colleague Sinu Joseph, who's written a fantastic book called Ritu Vidya. A lot of what I'm saying, she's codified and put the research in there as well. So one of the things that is said is if a menstruating lady wants to comfort her own child, the child must wear a garment made of flannel. Now,
Mm.
how foolish and orthodox would they be to give a prescription like this for no reason at all? And then when you get into the science, you realize that flannel prevents the flow of free electrons from the child to the mother. So the mother will not end up depleting the child. All children are full of free electrons. That is why youth is so bubbling with energy. So if the mother pulls away the energy from the child may fall sick. And that is why this whole sort of rule is made that the mother can comfort the child, but the child should wear a cloth made of flannel. Even if you look into something, which is no longer applicable, which is like, it says the lady who is menstruating must sit on a mat made of kusa grass. Modern science has now found that kusa grass is a wonderful insulator of positive ions. It doesn't let it go down. And it's a great conductor of negative ions from the earth into the lady. So it will replenish her, whatever she's losing to inflammation. It will help her regain that strength. And therefore, one of the things that we tell all Sepalika ladies, who are part of our programs is if you can just spend 15, 20 minutes barefoot on any patch of grass or ground near you during your periods, and you will notice a huge difference within 2, 3 months in your health. That's because the earth is the greatest donor of free electrons. That's why, modern science is now calling it earthing and grounding, and we have earthing mats and all of those. It's free, it's outside your home. Just take your slippers off, put your feet on the ground, and
Yeah.
in come the electrons. Sorry,
Yeah.
the question was about, postponing periods, but this took me into a rabbit hole. Yeah, please.
No, but I think that was so interesting. I know you've told me this briefly before, but thanks for going over it again. I actually wanted to bring it up and remind you to talk about it, but thanks so much. I think it's just something that all of us need to hear because, like you said, I mean, because we get so caught up with life itself and, we're so busy between personal and professional life, we really forget to understand. Very, very deeply why some of these practices were done in the past, right? Ultimately, a woman's body is so beautifully designed, done so differently from a male's. And I think we got to understand and respect that and work towards just using those hormones for our benefit and not constantly complaining that, oh my God, these damn hormones, right? That's what
Yeah,
we
and that's
always say.
yeah, and that's a man's view of the world. Unfortunately, I'm sitting on this side of the fence and blaming all my fellow men, but that is true. When a woman is called hormonal, it's almost like you're taking her strength and turning it into her weakness. The fact that women are hormonal means that they're able to do so many things. Do you know that one of the reasons why women, when they reach menopause, get so emotional is
Hmm.
because estrogen, which is high during their menstruating period, it stops at menopause. And estrogen is the multitasking hormone. A lady who's able to be on the office phone on the one hand while she's doing the sabzi and attending to the child's homework at the same time, men will never be able to do that. And this is biological. It's because men don't have estrogen, which is the multitasking hormone. Men are serial taskers. Men cannot do multiple things at the same time. You try making a man do three things, you will get crappy results out of all three activities. And that is the beauty of women's strength, right? So again, even during the entire period, and this is thanks to my so we have a wonderful academy called the Functional Women's Academy, and this is not our academy. This is run by a wonderful lady called Ash Milkovich, and she gives this analogy of how women should understand which hormone is peaking during what point of her period, and therefore
Hmm.
what should she eat, what activity should she do, and how can she ensure success of each activity if she does it at the right time. This is almost like a biological panchangam. You can look at the panchang and say, okay, so for example, let's say in the start of the period, right? We said already this is the inflammatory time, etc. So Ash would call this the winter. So this is like typically your metaphorical winter. Winter is a time for going inward, for introspection, for being with yourself, for not being very extroverted and doing too many activities. Because, like I said, the body is bleeding, the body is losing nutrients. It's also time for heavy foods. So, you can, during this time, if you eat nutritious foods that will give you a lot of nutrition, even Ayurveda will say this. I'll give you a little, tip again. I think we should give as many practical tips as possible. One of the things that is done in large parts of India is eating a few slivers of dried coconut or copra with jaggery during the period. You just
Hmm.
try putting one piece of small marble size of jaggery with two slivers of dried coconut. As soon as you start chewing it, you will find that the saliva in your mouth begins to explode. It literally becomes 2x of whatever it was before the eating that. Saliva is the most antioxidant natural substance in the human body.
Hmm.
It helps to support that whole oxidative stress that you're going through during the bleed. So imagine this was part of all period rituals. When a girl came of age, the first thing that is done in Andhra Pradesh is to give her the copra and the jaggery. It is almost like a prasad. Now we know why, because we know the huge potential, antioxidant potential in the saliva. So,
Hmm.
the foods that you eat during your period must support this antioxidant ability. So, add a pinch of turmeric to every glass of water that you drink during your period. Turmeric is antioxidant. It has the ability to quell free radicals automatically. Those 5, 6 glasses of water that you have in a day, one pinch of turmeric, which is beyond what we put in our cooking, right? So cooking anyway, India we incorporate, but put in one, small pinch of it, and you will find that it supports your health fantastically. So this is the first 5 days of your period, right? So this is the winter. Then she says, okay, let's look at the follicular phase. So after day 5 onwards, estrogen begins to climb up. Now here's the trick, ladies. Anybody who wants to eat carbs and not put on too much weight, right? So we keep hearing when a lady says that I have to eat half a piece of cake, which is less than 50 grams, and I put on a kilo. That is because you're eating it at the wrong time. If you
Hmm.
eat that same piece of cake in your follicular phase, which is from around day 4 or 5 to day around, let's say, 12 to 14, you will not put on that same amount of weight. Why? The scientific reason is that estrogen, the hormone, is peaking at that time, and estrogen improves insulin resistance. So you will find that the sugar is not floating in your blood, but it gets efficiently handled. So if you're going to eat carbs, eat it during the follicular phase, and you will find that the impact is far lesser. Right. So that's the follicular phase. And the trick there is we are still, of course, doing the flaxseed pumpkin, which is the flap.
Yeah.
So we have done the bleeding flap and we have done the follicular phase flap. Then comes your ovulatory phase, right? So first there was winter. From winter came the spring. So estrogen is growing, it's getting ready for new life. That is your spring. And then you reach your just 2 days before ovulation and ovulation itself. These are your peak energy days. This is your summer. This summer is asking you to go out. It's asking you to do that heavy lifting, push yourself on that 10K run. You can do what you want. You're peaking at this time because estrogen is peaking, testosterone is peaking, progesterone is about to be released. So all three hormones that a lady is privileged to have are all peaking. You will automatically find you are less hungry at this time. It's because the body is become so efficient at taking the same amount of food and turning it into energy. So now you've got this beautiful summer, and this summer will last till about a week after ovulation even. So it will last up to ovulation, so around day 14, 16, etc. It will even go up to day 20 if you're in good health. So then after the summer comes the autumn period. And we say early autumn is that time from day 14, 16 to day 20 or 22. And there is when you still have leftover energy from summer. So you can still do a lot of external facing activities, etc. Another tip, if you're going to ask for a raise, if you're going to make a big presentation, and if you can time it, then the ovulatory time is the time to do it. When you do it at that time, your energies are naturally peaking, your whole personality is outward facing, and you will project that energy and positivity to everybody. And when that happens, and they've done again studies on this, mind you, the Americans love data. So we've done studies on whether women waitresses get tipped better during their ovulatory phases versus their period phases. And you do find that customers appreciate the positivity that comes out during that time. So if you've got big projects lined up, this would be a good time to kind of step into those projects and do those. Spring, which is the earlier phase, could be the time to start something new. So we've been through winter, spring, we've been through summer and early autumn. Now comes the late autumn, and late autumn is like maybe about a week before your period. And that is when, again, you start going inwards. This is the time to declutter. The leaves are falling from the trees. This is the time when you can declutter your life. Suddenly, you'll find that, cleaning up the house, setting your business in order, cleaning up the crap from your desktop, all of those things are going to become far easier because that is the natural flow of the hormones as well. The body is clearing out excess hormones, getting ready for a period if you are not pregnant. So this is housekeeping time. So late autumn is housekeeping, and then comes winter again. So if you just think your period as if it's like a year-long season, you will find that you will get so much better, results across everything: your
Yeah.
exercise, your diet, your life, everything.
Wow, that's a lot of good information. I think we all need to write it down. I mean, I definitely have my pen and pencil and paper. Thank you so much. I'm going to start taking a few questions. Divya is asking, I worked out intensely all days of my periods. Then the next month, I got my periods 10 days earlier. Is this related?
Absolutely. There is a very good chance that it is. Of course, we'll need to see her specifics to be able to say it with certainty. But it's like this: your energies are low, your body is already fighting inflammation during your period days. At that time, whatever stored reserves you had, you depleted them further by working out really hard, which means that finally, when it was time to build up your endometrial tissue for the next period, the energy wasn't enough. So by the time, instead of estrogen building your inner wall of your uterus for 14 days, it may have been only able to build it for 7 days because you
Hmm.
kind of borrowed from your savings what was left for the next period and you exhausted it all. So now there's only 7 days of estrogen activity possible, and therefore the inner wall isn't built strong enough. That affects the quality of ovulation and progesterone next, and therefore an early period will come. So it is quite likely. Try it again. I would say never take any one answer as being sure. Next time
Yeah.
around, try doing long walks or yin yoga or
Yeah.
any of the more gentler activities during the period. See how it affects the next period, and there's your proof.
Yeah, absolutely. Acne, face swelling, facial, excess facial hair, all questions from women, of course, related
Yes.
to periods.
Yes, yes. So these are likely to be PCOS like symptoms. I won't call it
Hmm.
PCOD. PCOD
Hmm.
means polycystic ovary disease, which is a
Hmm.
far more stringent criteria than polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Hmm.
Syndrome means even without seeing you, if I get 4 or 5 such symptoms: excess facial hair, cystic acne, bloating of the face, water retention, then I
Hmm.
know that somewhere your hormones are out of balance.
Hmm.
This will often happen when the estrogen in your body is, so let's start with again, rewind, 10-second rewind. Both men and women first create the hormone testosterone. So, using cholesterol in the body, the hormone testosterone is created. The difference between men and women is men retain most of the testosterone as testosterone, whereas women convert it into estrogen. This process is called aromatization, right? That's why you guys have the estrogen and we don't. We retain the testosterone, you get estrogen more and less
Convert.
testosterone. Now, what happens in this conversion is sometimes women who may have certain imbalances in their diet or in their lifestyle or in their genetics may convert the testosterone, instead of converting into estrogen, they convert it to another form of testosterone called dihydrotestosterone or DHT.
Okay.
This leads to excess male like symptoms. This is called
Hmm.
hyperandrogenism. Now, here's a little trick you can try. I'll give you two tips which you can first try at home. If they don't work, then you need a doctor's help. Number one, the pumpkin seeds that you're using in the first half, they are very good blockers of conversion of testosterone to DHT. So if you start seed cycling properly, some of your male like symptoms will come down. Number two, start drinking spearmint tea. Any good brand spearmint tea is fine. You go on Amazon, just type spearmint tea, it comes. But remember, the therapeutic dose of spearmint tea is thrice a day. Don't do it once a day and then tell me it's not working, because it won't. The beauty of spearmint is it has certain chemicals that again block the conversion of testosterone into DHT. And by doing this, it's almost like, so the testosterone can either become estrogen or it can become DHT. So if you block the DHT pathway, not only will your male symptoms come down, your female health will improve because the same raw material will go towards the estrogen, right? So these are called aromatase inhibitors. And these are two natural ways in which you can do it. Spearmint tea.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for that tip again. All right. So in PCOD, generally docs suggested to change lifestyle, but what changes are needed? Okay, that's I think that will be very individual driven, I'm guessing, Dr. Mahesh.
No, actually, no. I'll give you a very simple, again, one line answer. And then,
Hmm.
yes, you are right. There are types of PCOD that allopathy doesn't recognize. So, therefore, there are individual answers. Answer number one, reduce your processed carb intake. That is the
Hmm.
biggest lifestyle change you can do.
Hmm.
Processed carbs lead to insulin peaking.
Hmm.
Insulin peaking leads to male hormones peaking. This link is not known by many people. They think reproductive
Hmm.
system is separate, metabolic system is separate. That's not how it goes. If you eat excessive processed carbs, and what is processed carbs? Anything that you get out of a packet, anything that is, your chips and your whatever bread, again, every Indian household table there is bread, right? So breakfast, that's how it goes. Also the idli, dosa, etc. I'm not saying don't eat them. The way to reduce your PCOD by reducing insulin resistance is to balance it. So again, simple visual example. If you're used to eating 4 idlis for breakfast, eat only 2 idlis, but eat enough chutney that it's almost like eating one more idli. That much thick chutney, right? So
Hmm.
this is the opposite of what your doctors will tell you. But why do we say it? When you eat the idli plain or with some gunpowder or molaga podi, any of those things, it's going to hit your stomach and turn into sugar immediately,
Hmm.
because that's all carbs are. Carbs are sugar.
Yeah.
The minute you have high sugar peaking, your pancreas are going to rush in the insulin. It leads to high amounts of insulin. High amounts of insulin trigger high amounts of male hormones. That link is just pure science. You don't have to worry about how it works, but it works 100% of the time. Therefore, when you give along with the idli a good fat, you are reducing the speed at which it turns into sugar in your stomach, because there's a fat now that is difficult to digest. So when you add a proper balanced meal, the same idli can become, nothing that will harm you in any way. So try that. Reduce processed carbs, eat more balanced meals, and you will find your PCOD lifestyle changes happening.
Yeah. Uh, okay. I do work out regularly and eat pretty decent food, but still my periods are not regular. It's been irregular for a very long time.
Yeah.
What could be the reason?
Yeah, I think, the problem with what we all consider, so two things, right? One is Unfortunately, the genetic cards are never dealt fairly, right? So, like Shwetamri says, she works out throughout her periods and nothing happens to her, right? So
I've changed
that's
that now ever since
yes,
I met
yes.
you.
And that's fabulous because many times we may not realize something is happening, but deep down it's as if you're eating away at your family wealth without realizing it. So it's going, 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 and then one day it'll finally say, "Hey, now I'm gone. Now the reserve is empty." And then that's when it hits us. But to answer this lady's question, not everybody is built equally, right? So you need to be very careful about experimenting with yourself. For example, I have found that in a small subset of Indian women, there is a gene mutation called an FTAO gene, where even eating a small amount of carbs produces a huge irregularity in their metabolic health and in their reproductive health. But the flip side of having this horrible gene is that if you control it even a little bit, everything improves like really fast. So these are called high reactors, people who react in a severe fashion to even a small amount of carbs, both on the positive side and on the negative side. So you may think you're eating pretty decent, and that's the second part. So whenever one of our ladies tells us, I eat ghar ka khana, I don't know why this is happening to me, I tell her to take a picture and send it to me, right? So take a picture of your typical ghar ka khana and send it to me. Here's what happens. Unlike the West, where the middle of the plate or the center of the plate is a protein, like a
Okay.
meat or a whatever, in India, the center of the plate is the rice or the roti. So when we have the rice or the roti at the center, that becomes the hero of the dish, whether we know it or not. The vegetables, which are the fiber, the phytonutrients, etc., all become smaller portions. And the dal is often perfunctory. It's so watery that it might as well not have protein. Right? So even the thicker dals. That's the truth of it, right? So it's just the science. So we say, if you want to truly eat well and eat pretty well, take a normal plate, divide it into four quarters. One quarter raw vegetables, one quarter cooked vegetables, one quarter is protein, and only one quarter finally is grain carbs.
Hmm.
Right? So it's just four, out of which half of them now become raw and cooked vegetables. Right? That whole semicircle, 180 degrees, gets taken up by raw and cooked vegetables.
Veggies.
One more sort of small quarter gets taken up by protein, and only the remaining quarter is grain carbs. Now you're eating balanced. And see if every meal looks like this. I wouldn't be surprised if we may be sort of not hitting that ideal thing and thinking that we're eating healthy. So
Hmm.
I'd say look into that for sure.
Sure, sure. Please recommend some diet lifestyle changes required during perimenopause. Are supplements required?
Okay. No, so ideally, all our ancestors got into perimenopause without any supplements, right? So
Hmm.
happily, we should also be able to do so. I don't understand, why it may be the case that, we need supplements and they didn't. But that said, women aren't reaching perimenopause today the way our ancestors reached perimenopause. They are reaching perimenopause having, like I told, just now mentioned, Shwetamri, use up a lot of the reserves already. So the reserves I'm trying to save for you by sort of counseling you to not exercise during your periods. That reserve is what will help you in perimenopause. It's
Hmm.
that your body will draw on. It's the adrenal strength. So what
Hmm.
happens in menopause? The ovaries stop producing estrogen and progesterone. So the adrenal glands take over and they produce small amounts of estrogen and progesterone and therefore try to make up the ovaries job. Now, if you arrive at perimenopause, having exhausted all your adrenal reserves because you worked out throughout periods, you took a lot of stress, you were building a career, looking after your kids, everything. Finally, when you hit menopause and the ovaries are no longer there to secrete these hormones, the adrenals are spent. They're
Hmm.
saying we were meant to not do so much work in the first 45 years of your life. You made us work so much. Now, after 45, where will I work? So that is why menopause is often because you have spent all your savings. So the way to what is the diet you can do in perimenopause? As far as perimenopause is concerned, if you lower the number of inflammatory foods that you eat, that will make a
Hmm.
big difference. Number one. Number two, foods that support adrenal health, which means things which are rich in vitamin C, for example. So all your bell peppers, your vitamin C based citrus fruits, etc., can really help you more from vegetable sources than fruit sources. I would say vitamin C is ubiquitous in a lot of things. Increasing your protein intake makes a huge difference. Increasing your fat intake makes a huge difference. The real those are the eating the balanced plate makes a difference. And if we can use some supplements which are harmless and don't have any side effects, my number one supplement advice for perimenopause would be ashwagandha.
Hmm.
Ashwagandha is an adaptogen. It is well available in high quality in this country. It is made by pharma companies like Himalaya. Don't mean to promote one brand, but they've been around for like donkey's years, so they're a good brand. And so we would often give ladies who come with perimenopausal hot flushes, mood swings, insomnia, weight gain, etc. We would give them ashwagandha. We give it usually 250 mg thrice a day. That's the standard, anyway dosage at which it is available, even from the Himalaya product. Luckily, in this country, it is an over-the-counter product. It isn't a prescribed product. So anybody who is in that age group can take it, and they will benefit from using ashwagandha in perimenopause.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, so this is a good question since we spoke so much about periods and workout, especially for people who say, I don't have any pain during periods, right? So the question is, how many days should I avoid training? Is it like, the first 2 days, first 3 days when it's normally intense?
Yeah. So till such time as you're able to say, I'm having flow, you should ideally not work out, not intensely. So for you,
Yeah.
if the flow is 4 days, so it's only once you start spotting at the other end, if that's what is happening, then that will not count as flow. But all days of flow, I would avoid strenuous activity. So that still doesn't take away a brisk walk, for example. It
Yeah.
still doesn't take away your slow moon phase. Even a Surya Namaskar, I would not say no to. Do your Surya Namaskar, but do it in the sort of the slow holding each pose for a minute, going slow, not the rapid ones where you're trying to finish 40 of it within 3 minutes, not that kind of stuff. Yeah, so each of the flow days, no intense activity.
Yeah. So there is a question where she's saying that I have intense menstrual cramps every month, and my gynac herself has recommended Meftal. And she's like, I've got an ultrasound done, everything seems normal. So basically, she's saying, is there any other hormone tests or anything else that I should be doing to kind of really nip this pain in?
Okay,
So,
got it. So this is where, again, I would say it is important for you to, seek professional advice at this stage because of two reasons. Number one, if indeed ultrasounds, etc., have been done and there is no great endometrial thickness and still you're feeling so much pain, there is
hmm,
a possibility that you may have a condition called endometriosis. And endometriosis, unfortunately, cannot be conclusively diagnosed by any lab test or any radiology. It is only through an invasive procedure that you can diagnose it. So it's you're now falling into a category of personalized advice that is needed. So I would say it is important. We do get people with severe pain, severe dysmenorrhea as part of what we do at Sepalica, but we do need to run them through what we call our normal ranges. Remember, this is the other thing, right? Any lab test that you do, the lab gives you one printed range, right? So your doctor is saying, hey, you're within the printed range, so you're normal. That is not what we do at Sepalica. The reason we don't do that is because those printed ranges on lab reports, lower than that or higher than that, you need hospitalization. That
hmm,
is not a condition that you want to get up to. Optimal health lies within a far narrower range.
hmm,
So if you show me the same reports, I may tell you this is not okay, whereas your gynac will tell you it's okay. So that is because the gynac only has medicines to treat you after you fall ill. We are trying to prevent you from falling ill. So the ranges where you're being called normal and you're being told everything is okay in your reports, that may not be the case. So, I would say you need to seek professional help for something so very individualized as a question.
yeah. Do you think she can write to ask at Sepalika? Would she
Please
be able
do,
to?
please do. We have
Yeah,
people
go
writing in
reach.
all the time. So,
Yeah,
ask is a simple word to remember. So ask at sepalika.com and,
yeah,
send us your reports. We'll be happy to help.
yeah. Yeah, Chehak is asking, can we fast for longer duration during periods, say 24 hours?
Okay. So this is a very highly individual thing. The time when we actually recommend that you fast counterintuitively is when you're ovulating, not when you're having the period. So around that day 14, 16, when you're about to ovulate, is when your hormones are already peaking. And at that time, if you don't eat also, it's fine. You can skip two meals in a day and nothing will happen to you because your hormones are really, really high. But in your periods, you're actually in a very low phase.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
at least eating mineral rich food. So you can have a soup if you don't feel like eating a full meal, but make sure it's a mineral rich soup, right? So if you're non-vegetarian, then you can make a chicken soup. If you're a vegetarian, then make a moong dal or a urad dal ka khichdi. So this is another big Ayurvedic thing. Moong dal and urad dal are both extremely rich in B vitamins. So you can
Hmm.
do a easy one pot meal, right? So do a one meal a day during your period if you must, if you feel like fasting, but make that meal so nutritious that your body will not feel pain or starve during the period. Remember,
Yeah.
every period is the start of the next hormone building cycle. So don't starve your body during that time. Give it lesser food if you feel like, but nutrient dense food. So the
Got
moong khichdi is a good one to do.
awesome. Thank you so much. I have a lot of loss of hair during my periods. Is that normal?
Yeah. So loss of hair, especially if it's happening during your periods, is likely telling us that your hormones aren't being disposed of properly through your digestive system. So, the roots of the hair are often the strength that they receive comes from iron. And
Hmm.
when you're bleeding, I don't know if this lady's bleeds are heavy or light, but
Hmm.
if they are heavy bleeds, if period after period she's having heavy bleeds, then it's likely that you're losing iron from the roots of your scalp. And that will lead to the hair falling out. But
Uh-huh.
if you're losing every period in a 28-day cycle, iron shouldn't get depleted that much. It is likely that you don't have enough vitamins and minerals, the other ones. So things like B vitamins, things like selenium, these are important to check and to correct. Thyroid health is another important one to look at for sustained hair fall. But yes, remember that again, hair health is a sign of a deeper mineral deficiency, usually. Either it's too much heavy metals or too little of the healthy metals, and therefore it needs a more careful look at what's happening.
Yeah. I have severe headaches before periods.
Yeah,
Any
this
particular
is a
reason?
yeah, very typical symptom. Severe headaches before periods can be due to usually estrogen dominance and progesterone deficiency. That means that the first half of the period, the hormone that was supposed to work, it worked for much longer. And the second half, after ovulation, after an egg was released, the progesterone was not of a high enough quality. Just before the periods, what begins to happen is both estrogen and progesterone drop severely. If at
Yeah.
that time you get headaches, that means you are very sensitive to the loss of hormones at that time. This shows a hormonal imbalance during the first half of the period. And if
Hmm.
you start seed cycling, there is a good chance that you will see improvement. Even if not complete elimination, you will see improvement for sure. And avoid junk food just before the periods. We say that the liver will always talk to the brain and the eyes. So if your liver is clogged with trying to detox, and at that time it's got a period is also approaching, you will get headaches because the liver will tell your head, I'm not happy, and you will get that
Yeah.
headache.
Got it. Okay, so Nikki says that she's diabetic. Her cramps are so bad that she can't even walk. She's done this, the Jira Methi, but the pain has never gone.
Okay.
Should then the advice be to write
Yeah,
to you
yeah,
because she's
yeah,
diabetic?
yeah, yeah. That would be the right advice. And I wouldn't be surprised once we fixed her diabetes, you will find that the whole pain reduces a whole lot by a huge extent. Because, like I said, insulin being high, insulin resistance, which is the key symptom of diabetes, is closely linked with the kind of period problems that you have. So
Yeah,
fix it from the diabetic end. Don't try to fix it from the period end. If you fix the
correct,
diabetes, the periods will resolve.
correct. Yeah. Kathy Flaxseed, no need to roast. I think I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So here's I'm glad she asked, and I will tell you this: seeds are nature's densest form of nutrition. So if you try to eat it just like that without breaking the outer cover or softening it in some way, it will actually, it may give you digestive distress. Because remember, as far as the plant is concerned, that seed will turn into a whole plant. So why should the plant be happy about being eaten by you? So it doesn't want to be eaten by you. So the right way to have the seeds, if you can do it, is to soak the seeds overnight, and then you use the grinder or a blender or anything small, or even a hammam dasta, what you break the things with, and then you can have the seeds. That would be the right way. Roasting takes away the nutrition, so it doesn't work.
Okay. Supriya, I think you had the same question. I think that's answered. Also, Kritika, you work out during periods. It's been answered. We're anyway going to save this and share it on, all the social platforms so you can go over the whole thing again. Can the flap thing, the flap and Susie that you mentioned, Naina is asking, can it be given to 13-year-olds?
Yes, absolutely. From the time that a young lady begins menstruating, remember these are food, right, guys? So we are so scared of everything now that simple
Yeah.
food is also scaring us. 1 tablespoon of one seed and 1 tablespoon of another seed, both of which we use as food. Why would that cause anything? It doesn't cause anything. It will support the young lady's period throughout her menstrual health. So by all means, you can use the flap and the Suzy combination with young kids as well. Just be aware of one thing. If the child is very thin, like a 13-year-old who's almost on the border of, let's say, BMI under 18 kind of thing, you may want to reduce the quantity to three-fourths of a tablespoon or a half a
Hmm.
tablespoon. That's the only thing. Even then, it's just seeds. One will also not do any harm to her. But overall, just be sure that the child doesn't have any digestive issues, is not allergic to nuts and seeds. These are crucial things to look out for.
Sure, sure. Uh, Shruti is saying I had my periods thrice in 1 month. Doctors said hormonal imbalance and put her on a tablet of 28 days for 28
Yeah,
days.
so
I would, I mean, without knowing much, I would say that sounds scary. So
I
I
think you
think
know
I
a
should just
lot,
tell us
Sritambre, actually. So
from
because you
you.
listen, no, because you listen to your body, right? So unfortunately, the tablet that the doctor has given her is like is running a bypass to her hormonal system that is imbalanced. So I'd be happy, anybody who writes in, we will share a video from our gynac MD so that they can hear it from a gynac as well, right? So sometimes this happens. So what happens is, let's say you've got something that's broken. Let's say your kitchen is not working. For whatever reason, your stove is bust and your cylinder is not working, etc. I tell you, ऐसा करते हैं, we'll shut down your kitchen and start working in the neighbor's kitchen. And now, when food comes from the neighbor's kitchen, everything looks fine. Is that what you want all your life? So that is what this hormonal pill does. It shuts down your own hormone system, which is broken. Instead of repairing it, they give you an alternate system which will run only on pills. And the
Hmm.
period that you get in that system is actually called a false period or a breakthrough period. So yes, sometimes it is necessary to use this to stop a lady from extreme bleeds if she's going towards anemia, etc. So I'm not saying per
Hmm.
se using this tablet is bad, but it is emergency use, and do not believe that it is fixing your problem. It is not
Yeah.
fixing the root problem. That is important to know.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. I mean, I hope everybody writes to Ask at Sipalika to really treat it from the root. I think we've again gone past our time. We'll get cut off any minute. So I'll just ask one last question, which is again, I think is important because she's like, can people with thyroid take flax seeds? Is it okay?
Yeah, so this is again a tricky one, but in general, unless you have hyperthyroid at that point of time, which means you're losing weight, your heart rate is increased, you're sweating like crazy, those are the people in whom you should be careful about flaxseed use, because using the flaxseed improves thyroid function. And you're saying that only in those people where it's already too active, the thyroid, you shouldn't be using the flaxseed. So, other than very rare exceptions, flaxseeds are fine to have.
Right. Okay, one last question. Needed some light on how retinol, when taken orally, probably for a year or so, can it affect periods, acne, uterus?
Absolutely, it can. This is unfortunately one of those medicines that is used to block the conversion of that testosterone to DHT that we mentioned, right? Except
Ah,
retinol is a far higher, far more potent form of vitamin A, and that is what they're trying to do over there. None of these should be used for sustained periods of time. Guys, it's not a retinol deficiency that led you there in the first place. So remember, it's no medicine deficiency ever causes an illness. So don't think the medicine is solving that thing. Go to the root cause. There is
yeah,
something in your diet and your lifestyle that is causing this hair loss or this acne or this facial hair for which the retinol is being taken. So if you do long-term use of retinol, it will certainly have some side effects or the other. Better to fix the root cause.
got it. Ah, okay. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if this is okay. If I send in, like, there are more questions, and we've obviously not gone to the bottom of it. Uh, would it be okay if I kind of again put these questions together and share, and we, whenever we can,
Absolutely.
we answer, and we can
Yeah, yeah.
maybe
I would say actually, truth be told, Shwetamri, we are a very small team at Sepalika, right? So we like doing
yeah,
quality work, but we're only able to work with a limited number of people. So if there is a way in which we can answer lots of these questions, once you've had a chance to look at them and your team maybe can group them into sort of questions which are in
yeah,
certain
yeah.
groups, then I'm very happy to, answer them on a session like this because it saves us a lot of our troubles of trying to type it all out, etc., etc. We will no doubt do it, but wait, have a little patience because we are a small team. And if you do write
I know,
in with too many questions, trying to answer everything because we're also treating patients and everything. So
of
give us
course.
some time. And of course, like I said, happy to come back and speak to you guys at any point and answer all your questions.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think Sharda has been answering a lot of questions. So, for
Ah,
everyone's
fantastic.
knowledge, yeah, Sharda Agarwal, who's been answering all your questions, is, the co-founder at Sipalika. So, Mahesh Jayaraman, Sharda Agarwal equals to Sipalika, and it's a women's hormone health clinic. So, yeah, we've left ask@sipalika.com for you to go ahead and send in your questions, and like you said, it's a small team, but they'll come back to you. And um, it's worked for me personally with my the very, very terrible urticaria. So I'm guessing it'll work for anyone who probably really wants to address your problems from the root and not just from the surface, right? But yeah, I think we're going to run out of time because another 5, 6 minutes we'll get cut off. So I just want to say thank you for your time. Means the world. I know it's very cold right now where you live. I can, like all warm and cozy, and yeah, and I'm here sitting in a sleeveless in
Yeah.
Bangalore. Yeah, it's never cold in Bangalore. But thank you so much. Thank you for just your time and the valuable, tips and information. This video for everyone will be put up on social, on our Facebook community page. Feel free to share the link with people who you think will benefit, your family, your friends, all the other women and men in your life. I actually wanted to ask you one thing about, the younger girls today hitting periods much faster, but we don't have time. And I think we'll wait for you to make a post on it, and then maybe we'll share that information across to everyone. But thanks everyone else, members, non-members, everyone who's here, participants. Take care. Lots of love. Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity. Everybody have a lovely weekend and a lovely Sankranti to everybody. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.